Rolypolys No Nanakorobi.
We all had moments in video games that creeped us out as kids. The opening to Creature from the Krusty Krab, the moon from Majora's Mask, literally anything from Kirby, specifically that one from the Nintendo 64 one, I didn't like him. For me, it was the Coraline video game. If you got a game over, it would show Coraline with the button eyes, and it creeped me and my brother out so much that we didn't touch the game again. However, instead of a single moment in a game that was unintentionally terrifying, how about an entire game that was unintentionally terrifying? Now, there aren't many games out there that do this, unless you want to count Super Mario Sunshine. There's one that shoots to my mind above all others though, a kids educational game made exclusively for Japan that is unironically scarier than some of the stuff that I've talked about before, and that game is Rolypolys No Nanakorobi Yaoki. Before we jump in, I think it's important that we briefly discuss the history behind this game. So, Rolypolys, as I'll refer to it from now on, is a Japanese educational kids game made in March of 1997, made to help teach children English and letters of the alphabet. This was the first attempt at a kids game by the company OSD, who primarily made more creepy and unsettling looking games in the past, you could probably tell. They wanted to try and take a crack at something for a younger audience, something more cheerful. Alright, do you want to hear something crazy? One of the people who worked on this game, and was the creator of OSD, was a Japanese artist named Osamu Sato. He was mostly into music and photography, but he dabbled in video games from time to time, hence why he started up his own game company. However, one of his most recognized works by far, especially outside of Japan, is the Japanese exclusive PS1 game LSD Dream Emulator. That's right, the same dude who made this made a kids game. That's how you know we're in for a great time. LSD Dream Emulator was this really cool PS1 game that was similar to Yume Nikki, where you're just exploring these super lucid areas based on the dream diary of a man named Hiroko Nishikawa. I'd love to own my own copy of LSD Dream Emulator one day, but it is insanely expensive. I sold everything in my background here to try and afford it, and all I could afford was this I Heart Mulch mug. Honestly, it was probably cooler. Anyways, on to the terrifying and weird PC game, Rolypolys. Now, I had to download this game off of the Internet Archive because physical discs just aren't really available. In fact, this game was just straight up lost media until 2019, when someone won a copy of the game in an auction and then ripped it online. Also, I need to mention it, but on the archive page, I found this absolutely insane thread of comments, and it's all over Friday Night Funkin'. I'll just show one reply so you can pause and read it, but oh my god, I was not expecting to see any of this on a PC game comment section. The game introduces us to all the wacky characters we'll be learning with, and oh my god, what is that? What am I hearing? Who is that? It's the greatest thing I've ever witnessed. So yeah, if you couldn't tell from the game cover, this game has a crazy art style. It's this uncanny, late 90s 3D rendered style that I absolutely love. If you've ever seen Sato's work before, or LSD Dream Emulator, you can definitely see the similarities at play here. As much as I love this creepy vibe though, it's kinda crazy that they thought this was good for kids. If I saw Pawn as a 5-year-old, I think I'd just be traumatized. Speaking of Pawn, we finally get to the main menu, where we can get through a thorough introduction to all of our terrifying animal pals. Clicking on any of these characters will bring you to a little introduction level, where you can read their character bios and interact with items around their area. They just make random noises and make the animals freak out. Look, I'm playing a video game. First up, we've got George the Ferret, who's hands down my favorite. He's just a sleepy little dude, always blobbing out. Me too, brother, me too. Next, we've got Las Vegas Akiko, a peacock who's all business by day and all party by night. Bananten is the scientist monkey who's got this dead look in their eye. Like every time they appear, they just look like that. Also, he loves bananas to the point where he'll slaughter for them. Pawn is this freaky ass yellow dog who terrifies me to no end. That is not a dog. Pawn also gets bullied 24/7 by this fox named Cho, who's just a jerk and really nothing else. He actively terrorizes Pawn the entire game, and that's really it. Then there's the Delmontis triplets, these little wormy dudes. Mr. Okhotsk, who's a chef crab, Jumping Jack Boo, a martial artist pig, and last but not least, wait, is that Piccolo? With the characters finally introduced, it's time for the most terrifying part of this game. It's time for us to read! So the whole point of this game is once again to help kids in Japan practice and learn English. Presented before you is a sentence that famously contains every letter of the alphabet. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Clicking on any of the letters shows you a word that starts with said letter. A little animation plays about the word, and by the end you learn about a saying or a proverb that correlates to what you just saw. For example, GE stands for Gamer Supps, which you can use code TOADBUP to get 10% off of. Wait, how did they know that? This game was made in like 1997. I unironically really like this. I feel like a lot of kids games that teach you about the English subject, at least that I remember playing as a kid, never had anything like proverbs presented to the player. Granted, I don't know how complicated certain proverbs would be for children since I'm a grown-ass man, but I think that these are fun English-related topics for kids to be learning. Phrases like, that which comes from the heart will go to the heart, nobody's perfect, don't cry over spilled milk, all great sayings. My personal favorite is let sleeping dogs lie. Yeah, I agree, let Pawn lie 6 feet fucking under, the yellow freak. The main focus though is definitely the animations that play after each word, highlighting characters doing something wacky in relation to the word and proverb. The animations range from silly to sweet to genuinely terrifying. I'm not joking, one of these actually freaked me out when I played it, even though I already knew it was coming. Now, as much as I'd like to go through each and every letter describing all of the animations and words, I feel like that'd be kinda boring and repetitive, so instead, I'll just choose some of my favorites to talk about. On to the letters, starting with E for eyes. Oh, Jesus, don't look at me like that. You're gonna give me a heart attack doing that. Starting off with our random assortment of letters is none other than Q, or quarrel. The cutscene opens up with Cho and Boo in Virtua Fighter of all places, beating the ever-loving shit out of each other. Banaten is all like, "Stop fighting!" and proceeds to smash both of them with a hammer. The slow reveal of both of them flatted made me laugh so hard, it reminded me of when in SpongeBob they'll just randomly cut to an ultra-realistic painting. The lesson here is that in a quarrel, both parties are to blame. I mean, yeah, don't resort to violence and try to keep the peace, but I promise there are reasons to get in fights. Imagine you're beating up some dude because he punched your grandma or something, and a big red monkey kills you with his magic hammer backpack. Next up is the letter C, or wait, what was the word for C again? Whoa, 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 alright, not that one, not that one. K stands for kettle, where we meet up with the wormy boys we met earlier. They make this silly noise, I love them. They keep trying to one-up each other by putting their flags higher and higher, until the yellow worm just gets pissed and straight up kills his brothers over it. And then Banaten comes over and fucking shoots the yellow one? Oh my god, it was never this serious. How is this related to a kettle again? Well, according to the game, the pot calls the kettle black, which means that the pot, unable to see its own bottom, calls out the kettle for being burnt underneath. I think I get it, but what does this have to do with them trying to one-up each other? Why did they get shot at? B is for blue as we cut to the dog Pawn looking to the sky, cloud watching. All of a sudden, a cloud shaped like Cho appears. Remember when I said Cho is an asshole and always messes with Pawn? Well, Cho is so evil that even just a cloud that's shaped like him somehow electrocutes Pawn with lightning. How much of a hater do you have to be for that to happen? The lesson here is that anything can happen at any time, because God forbid Pawn gets a moment of peace. You know what? Let's quickly go through everything Cho does to Pawn in this game. Cho ties Pan to a pole and beats his ass while others watch. He ties him up for his amusement and makes him stretch to inhumane proportions. Pan gets hit with a rock from Cho while he's in the ocean. He gets ran over by Cho in a motorcycle later on. Cho shoots him with a gun from the window. Cho hides in a mailbox and punches him randomly. Cho lights a stick of dynamite in Pan's house after a full day of terrorizing him and blows him up. A version of Cho in a video game managed to breach reality to shoot Pan in real life. Cho kicks him in the stomach, spins George the Weasel so fast that it blows Pan out of a tree, and lastly, Pan picks up a coin on the street, which Cho somehow crawls out of and beats Pan. I don't think there is a bigger hater in fiction than Cho. He broke reality multiple times just to mess with a yellow dog. You gotta respect the hustle at some point though, I can't lie. One of the last letters that I'd like to discuss is the letter T, which stands for the word time. Now, this is the letter that you've likely seen the cutscene for if you're familiar with this game, because this is without a doubt the most unsettling one out of the bunch. Just watch it.
Ready?
Go!
Listen, I hate to bring up the blue guy again, but isn't it hilarious that an educational kids game from the 90s is objectively scarier than Sonic.exe? And that's all there is to Rolypolys. Like I said, I don't want to sit here and just read off all the cutscenes and phrases. You could play the game yourself or watch them on YouTube if you really want to see them. Now, my thoughts on this game are a little all over the place. Just from my perspective, I absolutely love this game. Weird 3D graphics and characters, these cartoony and weird as hell cutscenes, it's just such a charming game. I viewed this more as an experience than a video game. I mean, there were a few words that had actual mini-games for you to play, but those were far and few between. In my humble Toadbup opinion, this is a really interesting and cool experience. However, if we take the target audience into consideration, this game might not be as great. Sure, it's a cool game in the eyes of someone like me, but imagine being a child seeing some of these characters or some of these cutscenes. I'm confident in saying that if I was in elementary school and saw this time cutscene when it was night, I think I genuinely would have been terrified. I love the work I've seen from Osamu Sato, but I've gotta show some doubt when they said they tried to make things less disturbing for this game. The gameplay and content itself is fine for kids, I think. Surprisingly, I'm not a child from Japan trying to learn English, so my input might not be great on this, but I've played a million edutainment games in my day, and this one's not that bad. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the idea of learning proverbs and sayings is a neat idea for a literature-based video game. I've also got a soft spot for point-and-click PC games, so that might be why I like it, who knows. So overall, I think Rolypolys is a cult classic that was probably a bit much for kids, but really cool to mess around with as an adult. I gotta say, it's really fun to talk about a weird PC game again. I'll admit, I originally wanted to talk about it because of the creepy aspects I knew about, but this is a really neat PC game from the 90s that I'm glad I learned about. I feel like this game got a bit of a bad rap online for a while, and I want people to see the game beyond that. Like, no Patrick, Rolypolys is not an educational kids game that causes brain cancer. If you like cool, uncanny PC games from the 90s like me, go give Rolypolys a try. Also, there's a sequel where they're in space, 50,000 likes and I'll do a 3-hour long deep dive on the entire series. You know what? We need more games like Rolypolys teaching important life lessons to children. So, introducing my new game, Slow and Painful, teaches the kiddies about the inevitability of time killing us all. A DLC pack will be out in 2026 about brain-eating amoeba.
Getting fit and funky is that your desire? Get down and boogie till you catch fire. Dance and shake the soul and makes you feel alive. Shakes up your body, high five. You've got the will to get fit and trim.